live back in a bed, meditate, I think I should. No, we ain't friends, got me on.
For a long time in hip-hop, TDE was the label, one of the biggest powerhouses in hip-hop, holding some of the biggest artists. Despite being founded almost 2 decades ago at this point, TDE has remained on top of the record label game in hip-hop and has continued to do so. With the departure of their largest artist, Kendrick Lamar, it is unsure where TDE stands in hip-hop. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how TDE will continue to stay on top. So, like I just said, Kendrick Lamar is off TDE. We still have a full roster of artists that continue to drop music that we're going to kind of go through and look at kind of their marketing schemes and how they're being marketed and promoted through TDE to show you guys why TDE will continue to be the top dog. So to start off, I mean, artists in TDE commonly work with each other, provide features on each other's albums, working with each other. I mean, even Black Hippy, which was a rap group formed from members who are all signed to TDE, was actually signed to TDE as a whole, as a group, showing that this collaboration is kind of natural for TDE. One of the big complaints people have for TDE, especially now, is that they don't let their artists drop. A lot of these artists have lots of years in between their album drops, and TDE President Punch has been taking a lot of backlash for this, but while understanding this backlash, he does seem to have a stance that not everyone understands the music industry and this is necessary for their artists to succeed. And looking at the history of TDE, this might be true. Even Kendrick Lamar, it was 5 years from his last album that he dropped his new one, and that was his last album on TDE, showing that this really is the pattern for TDE. It's unsure whose decision this is, or if it's more of a collaborative thing, but regardless, the phenomenon of waiting years and years to release can be seen throughout TDE signing practices and strategies they use to market their artists. TDE tries to sign artists frequently and consistently throughout the years to keep their roster updated, but it's unsure if all of these artist releases are going to end up being pushed or not. It seems to depend on how they perform early on in their signing. So I'm going to go through solidified TDE artists. As you can see, all the current artists on TDE right here. Here is the current roster. You can see that, you know, they sign almost every year. They seem to sign artists frequently, and just going down the list, J-Rock, he was signed in 2005. He seems to drop albums every 3 to 4 years, but like I said, he is a solidified artist, so he can get away with this. People always check in on his stuff. You know, he's always featuring other TDE members, which is going to be a theme for about every artist I'm about to list in the solidified artist category who's been on TDE for a while. Absol signed in 2007. He just dropped his first album in 6 years. Herbert, it's been a long time, and again, people are always going to tap in with his stuff. He's always featured on TDE stuff. ScHoolboy Q signed in 2009. He drops every 2 to 3 years. It's been almost 4 since his last drop, Crash Talk, in 2019, so I think we can expect something soon from him. I mean, he is a hard hitter, and you know, whenever one of these TDE artists drop from this category, you know, there's always something to be said. It's always a big discussion in the hip-hop community. For example, SZA signed in 2013. She just dropped her first album in 5 years, and this was a big moment. Huge artist, one of the biggest singers out there, and this was a huge moment in just the music community as a whole, not even just hip-hop. Isaiah Rashad also signed in 2013. He dropped his first album in 5 years last year, and that was a big moment for hip-hop. I mean, these solidified artists, you know, when they drop, they make noise. I mean, they're not on the level of a Kendrick Lamar, but this is exactly what Kendrick Lamar did, and it worked for him. I mean, his album was a smash, and I think this is kind of the old TDE formula that seems to be working, but in the streaming age of music, you know, you see that these newer signees kind of have a new approach that I'm going to get into now. Next signee would be Skiiiwalker in 2016, and he hasn't even dropped since 2016. That was his first album under TDE. They just put an album right out the gate, and the only thing he's dropped since is 2 EPs from last year, which is kind of strange. You know, it's kind of like the old solidified artist, you know, he's dropping an album when he was signed and then maybe waiting a few years until, you know, something is really coming. Same can kind of be said for Sir, who was signed in 2017. He dropped 2 albums since, but it's been over 2 years since his last album, and it doesn't seem that these 2 artists seem to be pushed that hard. They are commonly featured on artist albums. For example, Absol's album that literally just came out that I was talking about features both these artists, so there is a push, but it's not as a commercial push as some of these solidified artists who are going to build up hype for years and years and years and then please their fans with exactly what they're looking for. So then this next group of artists is what I consider the new era of TDE. You know, all of these artists are new, and they almost all have a different marketing strategy than these other artists. So this first one being Reason, signed in 2018. His releases are 2 years apart. It's been over 2 years since his last, so it's kind of the old way, you know, kind of waiting a while to drop, but I actually like Reason a lot. I think he's being marketed great. I think TDE is actually doing a great job. Next artist would be Zacari, signed in 2019, and he has dropped 1 album, and it was dropped in 2019, and nothing since, so it seems these 2 artists, you know, they're kind of being hyped not really pushed right now. That's not exactly their time, which I respect and understand. But these next two artists, I mean, this is that new TDE, you know, this is this new marketing mix. Vaughn signed in 2020, wasn't revealed till 2021, showing that, you know, they plan stuff, regardless if this artist is coming out with music, which he is. He's dropped the EP and a bunch of singles to get his name out since then. You know, they really take their time with these artists and plan out everything. The same thing could be said for their 2022 signee Doechii, who also dropped EP and a bunch of singles to get her names out, one with SZA, stuff like that. And I think this is the wave. Instead of just signing an artist and making them drop an album and seeing if they stick and then making them wait half a decade for their next album, even if that next album does kind of land how they want it to, it's a long time for no music. And definitely in the streaming era of music, it makes sense to kind of have the approach they have for Vaughn and Doechii, kind of just put out singles, see what sticks, what doesn't, and then you can kind of build around a project from then, hopefully drop it soon after these singles and EPs come out so the hype's still there, and then maybe, you know, you can take a year or two off of them dropping so their next album really hits. TDE is always planning their artists very carefully, and they're staying consistent with their new signees. However, some artists seem to have favorability over others, unless those artists just have big plans for massive career training drops in the future. It's a little strange, the discrepancy between artists, but I do believe to an extent that these artists who take years and years to drop, it's not completely Top Dawg's decision. I mean, Ab-Soul was going through a lot of mental stuff, SZA was going through a lot of stuff as well, Kendrick Lamar was going through a lot of stuff as well that made them not want to release for a long time. But regardless, Top Dawg gives them the opportunity, I think, with this marketing mix they have now of these heavy hitters, about 5 heavy hitters who rap fans have known for over a decade, who they can identify with, who they have memories with. If these artists can continue to drop every few years and make these community-changing albums, and then also supply that with their new artists who are constantly dropping singles, EPs, trying out new stuff, it's a really fresh take on a label rather than having everyone kind of operate in the same fashion. There is discrepancy between what artists can do what, but regardless, I think TDE is masterfully crafted, and even without Kendrick Lamar, I think they will continue to stay on top. And yeah, that's about all I got for you guys today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe to the bell so you don't miss any videos, any updates, and like that. I make videos on hip-hop and stuff like this all the time. Go in the description, follow my TikTok, my Spotify, my Twitter down there too. And yeah, it's been Bryce. Peace.
Can I picture little Bobby, just a young'un run around with his bands, hammer in his hand, feeling like a man. Run